welcome to Round Robin. I'm your host, Robin McCormick with the City of Hampton. And today we're going to talk a little bit about wild animals and how you can help and see some of the rehabilitation going on. My guest is Jesse Taylor from Sandy Bottom Nature Park. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
It's fun because as we're taping this, we just had a segment with the animal shelter about domesticated animals and what people can do. But we forget sometimes about the wild animals. And because we're such a developed city, they need a little bit of help, don't they?
Yes. You figure we have a large population of everything from white-tailed deer to a lot of the animals that people don't realize that we have in suburban areas, such as raccoons, possums, foxes even, and different types of birds like peregrine falcons and hawks, which a lot of times people don't realize they also come into contact with people on a regular basis and sometimes end up being injured and need to be rehabilitated.
The occasional fox has popped up in Fox Hill, and we just forget this. I see bunny rabbits through my yard a lot, they're very common. There's still a lot of animals here.
Yeah, we have a large population, like I said. I mean, with the deer and the owls and hawks that we get in, it's on a continuous basis. It's nothing that really slows down. It just continues to pick up as the growth of the city continues. We're going to notice more animals needing to be rehabilitated.
Okay, so why do they need to be rehabilitated, Jesse? What happens? They come into some inappropriate contact with people, or they're in a place where they can't be?
There's multiple reasons why. Some of them, especially with the birds, there's two different reasons. Some end up being because of, like with hawks, we get a lot of them from vehicle accidents. A lot of people don't realize hawks, when they're flying above like road lines and stuff like that, they might see prey on the ground near the road and swoop down and get hit by a car. Then you also have people who see baby birds and they think the best thing for them to do is to take them into their home and try to take care of themselves, which almost always ends up in a disaster, and then we end up having to try to take over from there and try to make it right so that we can release them again.
So, and that is an important, my dog once cornered a baby possum in the corner of our yard, and didn't know what to do with it, but knew that he should stand there and bark at it. It was like, come see, there's this thing. And we just brought him inside, and I hope the mother found it, or it was old enough to grow up or whatever. But yeah, you don't, go and save the baby animals without knowing what you're doing and how to do it.
It's always best to leave them alone. A lot of times people think that an animal is injured or can't take care of itself because it's too young, and that's usually not the case, especially with bunnies. And that's bunnies and squirrels are the two that we get a lot of.
See, you're calling them bunnies. Are you doing that because I did?
I probably, actually, because usually I would call them rabbits, but because I heard it.
They're so cute, especially when they're little. There's
But
so many of them.
There's a lot of them, and people see them, especially when they're tiny. They think, oh, they can't take care of themselves, and they don't realize that they get pushed away and weaned off from their mother at a very young age. There's a little spot, in fact, on top of their head. It's a little white spot on the eastern cottontail that we have in this area. And once that spot is smaller than the size of a pencil eraser, they're actually on their own. So they look like little babies, but they're on their own. They don't have a parent that takes care of them anymore.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And the same thing with squirrels. And once they have fur and they're opening their eyes, they're moving on their own, it's not too long after that before they get pushed away from the den and the mom says, go on your own.
Nature's cruel. Nature's tough.
It has to be, because, you think about it in the wild, only the strong will survive, because they have to realize they have to get their own food, they have to provide their own housing, so they have to be able to do all these things on their own. And if they don't learn at a young age, then they won't garner it as they get older.
Yeah, they'll never be able to be released.
Yep.
Okay, so if we can't help by taking in cute little animals, how can we help?
Well, there's different ways. One way you can do it, like at our park, if you wanted to help animals that are being rehabilitated, you can actually do what's called the Naturedoption at Sandy Bottom Nature Park. We have several animals that we are rehabilitating. Some of them are non-releasable. We have some hawks and a fox and a couple other animals that are non-releasable, but we do have some that we get in that we do release. We allow the public to come in and actually adopt one of the species. It could be anywhere from $15 to $50. And with that, what you get is you get a picture of the animal, you get some information about the species, why we have him, history about the park and why we were doing what we're doing, and how you're benefiting the wildlife in the area.
That's pretty cool. Now, can we come see these animals?
Yeah, we have a lot of different programs where you can come see the ones that you have adopted, such as our wildlife education hikes. We'll take people out there on Sundays usually to view the different species that we have that we're rehabilitating. We also have in our nature center some animals that you could come and see on a regular basis, such as different types of frogs and toads, turtles, some of them being water turtles, some of them being tortoises. We have different species of snakes, which the kids usually love. I mean, we have a lot of the native ones that you're going to find in the area.
Including some of the poisonous ones, right?
Including some of the venomous
But
ones.
you need to look at them and see what they are. So if you're on a hike, you recognize.
Yeah, and we do only have one that we have in our park, which is the Cambric rattlesnake. We do have him on display for somebody to see what it would look like. It's not a very common snake to come across, though, because snakes in general don't want to be around larger animals, so they tend to stay out of high traffic areas. So when you come to our park, most likely you won't see one. But if you did, as long as you gave it its space and walked around it, you'd be fine. And you can come into the nature center, like you said, to view what type of species it is that you may have come across.
And so this is an interesting thing about snakes. I think kids are almost never afraid of snakes.
Yeah, that's usually the
Grown-ups are
case.
almost always afraid. How does that change?
And you don't really see much of a change. We have a lot of volunteers that come to our park, and that's another way that we get a lot of help with the animals. And with these volunteers that come in, a lot of them usually say, I want to deal with the birds and the hawks and, the fox and stuff like that, and just keep me away from the snakes. That's usually the case. And even after they've been around the snakes for a while, they usually have that fear still there. It's a fear that's been put there since birth, with a lot of people, and because their parents were scared of them and so forth and so forth. And it's okay. It's not a bad thing. It's not an unhealthy fear because, in all actuality, if you're afraid of something, you stay away from it, then you're not going to have any interaction. You're not going to hurt the snake either by being afraid of it and staying away from it. So that's not a terrible thing. The only time that it comes into a negative is when somebody tries to harm the snake because of that, which
people
rarely ever
assume
does
that all
happen, but it
snakes are
does
bad
happen.
or dangerous, and so something like a black snake or garden snake,
And they don't realize what they do for the ecosystem and for yourself in general at your house. If you have a garden, you have garter snakes, they're taking care of insects. Black snakes, which are called eastern rat snakes, now they take care of a lot of the rodent problems that you may have.
I could use one right now, as a matter of fact. So, and it's great for kids, I think, to see that up front. I used to take my Cub Scouts, to some of your Sunday afternoon, because it's not like you're just walking past cages. You guys lead the hike. You're telling us about the animals, what happened to the animal, how it came to be there. They're just really educational, and it's up close to nature.
Yeah, and a lot of times they'll actually get to, like you said, have that up-close interaction. Some of them, especially if it's a snake program or something like that, they actually get to handle some of the animals and get to touch. And sometimes we even, depending on if we have them or not, we'll give out different snake sheddings to the kids so they can see what they look like and kind of get a feel for it. And we'll let them keep it a lot of times.
So why is it important that we teach our kids and that we remind ourselves as grown-up what the wildlife in this area is?
It's important because they belong here. They have a purpose. Without them, you're going to have different issues come about. You figure everything has a system that it works around. And if you take one of those things out, we're going to lose some of the other things. For instance, you have certain birds that will eat certain insects. So without them, you're going to have more insect problems. Without snakes, you're going to have more rodent problems. The foxes, of course, they take care of some of the mammal problems, some of the small rodent problems, and rabbit issues, because that's one of the favorite.
Overpopulation, there has to be a natural predator.
Exactly. And without those natural predators and natural systems into place, all that's going to happen is a lot of the nuisance animals that we don't like the most, those are what's going to take over more.
And certainly, we need to remind people, don't approach wild animals. There have been rabies, particularly it's raccoons, right?
Well, it really varies on the
But they get that from us. They didn't.
Yeah, rabies, and it comes in contact a lot, or when people come in contact with it, it tends to be something like a raccoon or a fox. Bats in general, they can carry it too. They're actually the #1 carrier of it, but they don't come in contact with people as much.
Right. But and particularly sometimes if a wild animal is diseased or not itself is the reason you'll see it. The reason it comes closer to people, the reason it changes its behavior.
It can be, and that is the case in a lot of times. But it's also important to remember, a lot of people have an assumption, especially with raccoons and stuff. They think, okay, it's out in the daytime, it's going through my garbage can, and I'm looking at it through a window, and it's not running away. Something's got to be wrong with that thing. We get those calls a lot.
But it could just be hungry.
It could just be hungry, and they're nocturnal, which means they can't see very well at night. But that doesn't mean they only come out at night. So a lot of people don't realize that they will come out in the day. They can see better in the daytime still. They just see very well at night.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're still active in the day sometimes. So that's not an unusual thing if you do see them during the day.
Okay. Is there anything you want to mention that I haven't asked about in terms of learning about wildlife indigenous to this area or helping rehabilitated
Well, we
animals?
do have a lot of different programs, like I mentioned before.
Okay, let's run through those.
We have some that we can do, like the wildlife education programs. We have some really interesting ones that we're starting to do now at nighttime, where we take people on night hikes to find snakes, frogs, owl hikes at night, which they're pretty good. The owl prowl hikes, we actually take you out and we listen for the sounds, and then we go try to identify them.
Oh, that sounds like fun.
That one books up pretty quick. We're starting to do some kayaking programs where we're actually taking people out into the water, into our ponds and lakes in different areas around here, and showing them some of the species that we could find along the water's edge.
You know, I tend to think of Hampton as this very, very developed place. But even somewhere like Newmarket Creek, as soon as you get onto the middle of that creek and look at the banks, they're just teeming with crabs and insects and all kinds of
Egrets,
stuff.
all sorts of
Yeah,
waterfowl.
there's wildlife everywhere.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you're driving down the street, you might not see it as much, but just as soon as you get off that beaten path.
They're all around us. I mean, even in your own yard, a lot of people don't realize what they have in their own neighborhood. So it's a good way to come to us, let us show you what to look for, what to listen for, and then you'll get a better understanding of what you have in your own area. Because a lot of people come to us and they see the snakes or something like that, and they're like, oh, well, I don't have that at my house, I've never seen it. It's like, you do, you just don't know where they are.
That's right. Well, that's, you know, haven't made my backyard a nature area, but there's some places in the back where we leave, you know, a little bit of fallen branches and some leaves and just a little more natural, a little more of a hiding place for wildlife. Of course, the dogs don't let them hide there for very long, but you know, there's a lot out there that we don't see very often. We see the squirrels, we see some of the backyard type birds.
Yep, a lot of the songbirds and seabirds. Yep.
But Sandy Bottom is a great place to go and reconnect with the more natural element. It's a huge resource for the city. In fact, for the entire region. People come to Sandy Bottom from all over.
Yep. And anybody who wants to come to Sandy Bottom anytime and walk to our nature center, they'll get a one-on-one with whoever's working at the time at the front desk. And even then, at times, you know, we'll be able to take out some of the animals and show just the general public. So it's not just you coming to have a nature tour at our park. You can have that interaction still as just being a normal guest to our park.
That's a great idea. And of course, obviously that's if they're not busy. And sometimes they're very busy with the rentals and all kinds of stuff.
You'll be able
like
to tell
that,
a lot. If you come in and there's not a whole lot going on, you'll have an opportunity most likely to interact with some animals.
Okay, so watch the city's website for animal programs. And you guys require reservations and it's a limited size. So you do fill up fast, especially if, like me, you're trying to take a Cub Scout group or, you know, a group of kids.
Yeah.
Make sure you register.
Yep, that's right.
Okay, thank you, Jesse. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it for having me.
And thank you for watching. I hope this gives you a little more information about what's going on out at Sandy Bottom Nature Park.